Let's welcome now back to the show Dr. Jose Lopez, professor of physics at Seton Hall University, to discuss some recent solar activity. Now, you may recall those solar flares last week, which caused some disruptions to technology, myself included. I was having some issues with my cell phone. Welcome to the show. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, so can you tell us what's going on with all this increased activity with the sun?
Well, it's actually normal. This is normal. This is the normal cycle of the sun. This is how it works. It has an 11-year cycle, and what basically happens is there's magnetic fluctuations that happen on the surface of the sun, and it happens. So it's a normal phenomenon. And 2012, 2013, this next year is going to be rampant activity.
When you say rapid activity, and I didn't mean to step on you there, more disruption to cell phones, to flights, what are you talking about here?
Yes, to many things. So I have a little demo here.
You brought the sun with you.
I brought the sun with me in honor of March Madness and the college basketball tournaments.
Nice.
So we have a basketball. So what's really happening is the sun, just like the Earth, is rotating. So it's rotating around its axis. And it turns out when you have a sphere like this, is on the top of it and the bottom of it, it actually moves slower than the center. So what's happening is the sun, like the Earth, has its own ocean. It's made of a plasma. And the plasma, unlike our ocean, which is neutral, has electric charge on it. So that's creating these currents, these plasma currents. And then the sun is rotating, and it's rotating fast. The top is moving slower than the equator, and then that causes these sunspots to form, and these instabilities to happen, and these bubbles form. And then once in a while, and no one's really sure exactly what's happening, they just decide, I don't like it there, and they erupt. And of course, we worry about it when those eruptions happen, those solar flares happen in the direction of the Earth. You know, if they happen in the opposite direction, we don't care. But if they happen in the direction towards the Earth, that's when it becomes an issue.
When we have these eruptions, this is these shooting these particles toward the Earth, is it correct?
Yes.
And then how can we minimize the effect, or can we?
We can't. I mean, the Earth is a great planet to be on because it has its own magnetic field. And what basically happens is when the sun is constantly sending what's called a solar wind. And what basically happens is the magnetic field of the Earth, the North Pole, the South Pole that we know about, like the typical magnets, it gets stuck in the top of it there, and it creates those northern lights. So it protects us from that. But when you have these huge solar flare eruptions, it can't really protect us from it. So what can happen is exactly what Laura was saying. It can affect our communications, our satellites. What happens is the atmosphere of the Earth actually expands, and the satellites that are usually telecommunication satellites that are in lower orbits have to adjust for that. And so that's one thing that can happen. The other thing is there's a lot of energy, electrical energy. So the microchips, the electronics on it can get overly charged and break up, or they're high energy particles, they can just basically eat them away.
And how do you make these adjustments?
Well, with the satellites, that's pretty easy. I mean, well, you have to basically have the propulsion system move them up and down a little bit. You end up wasting fuel, but you can do that. With the other stuff, they are protected, but to a certain level.
Now, you mentioned, and of course we know how it's kind of affected technology, but here in the Northeast in the United States and over much of the U.S., we've experienced warmer temperatures. Any correlation there?
There is a correlation there. So they've found, doing many studies over hundreds of years at this point, about 200 years, they've looked at core samples of ice, they've looked at trees. Basically, you cut up a tree and they have the little rings, and they found that during these 11-year cycles that the sun is going through, there's more rain usually when the sun is very active, as it is now. So there's more growth in the trees, and you see that manifested there. So it does affect Earth weather also. There's more moisture, they tend to be warmer temperatures. I mean, what's happened the past last winter and the previous winter has been they've been colder because the sun has been less active.
Given what we know about this sun activity, has corporate America come up with some kind of device to measure this and make those adjustments you were talking about?
Well, there's a lot of things that the electrical companies have said they're doing. I mean, part of the issue that can happen is when we get one of these solar flares is the way our electrical system is designed. If you've noticed, there's 3 little plugs, and there's the little round plug, that's the ground plug. So what can happen is when one of these solar flares comes, it hits the surface of the earth, which is, you know, the ground, what we call the ground, electrical ground. And then electricity flows through the ground, which is a bad thing, and that can charge up all our electrical devices and mess them up, aside from, you know, satellites and different things.
Not much we can do about it.
Well, what you can do is you can put little capacitors and little things, but that adjustment hasn't been made. That's why there's so much worry.
All right. Well,
Thank you
enlightening,
so
Dr.
much.
Lopez. Thanks for joining us again. We'll
Welcome.
see you again soon.
Okay, thank you.